Hello my gorgeous friends, welcome to Alicia Budget Beauty. My name is Alicia. Here on my channel, I love affordable fashion and beauty. I do hauls, tutorials, reviews, all sorts of fun stuff. So if that sounds good to you, please subscribe, stick around, and be a friend. Well, you guys, today I have a massive palette declutter. I'm not sure how many I have here. You guys will have already seen it in the title or the thumbnail, but I know it's a lot and I'm excited because if you didn't know, if you haven't been subbed to me for a while or follow me on Instagram, I got up to around 500 palettes a while back, like a year ago, over a year ago, I think. I just went crazy for a couple of years, buying and buying and buying. My mentality was like a collector's mentality, and I do still collect certain brands, but now I'm more of like, let's just have in my collection what I truly love, what I'll really use, formulas that I love. So there are some palettes in here that are not bad, but I just have to be more critical now because girlfriend did not need 500 palettes. And I've already decluttered over 100 before this video in prior declutters. So I'm just weeding through my collection and getting it curated like I want it. So if you want to see which ones just didn't make the cut, keep on watching. All right, first up we have the Sunday Brunch palette by EYESHADOW. Now you guys, this palette is actually really good. So you might wonder, why am I decluttering it? I'm just being really picky. I have amazing palettes in my collection. I have just brands that I adore that are excellent formulas. And this is a really good formula. This shade in here is so gorgeous. It's a gorgeous, like, grungy green shimmer, but I just don't reach for it. So it's gotta go. We have a BH Cosmetics Beautiful in Barcelona palette. You guys, this palette's also really pretty. I do actually like this color story, but this is the formula of BH that is their good formula, not their excellent formula. And because of that, I decided to let that one go. We have another BH. This is the Lunar New Year palette. It's shown up a couple of times in other videos for you guys where I did rankings, and this ranked at the very bottom. Even though this color story is absolutely stunning in my opinion, it does not perform well. The shimmers are lackluster and chalky and dry. The mattes weren't very good. So that was a big fail from BH Cosmetics. Then we have two She Glam palettes. So we have the Bubblegum palette, this pastel, and then we have the Splash Bash palette. Now, I do actually like this color story a lot. This is not terrible, but at this point, I'm not keeping just only palettes that are amazing. I do have palettes that just perform really well in my collection, but it has to be, maybe I don't have something else like that in my collection, so I kept it. But like, I know I have these colors in other palettes that I just prefer formula-wise, and that's why these two are going. The Ciate London, this is the Editor palette. So here's what it looks like. This is not a terrible palette either. I really like the shimmers in here. You've got some gorgeous shades, but it is not a really good formula. It's a good formula. And so for that reason, it's gotta go. All right, then we have a bunch actually from Midas Cosmetics. So we have the Genesis palette, really beautiful color story actually. We have the Unveiled palette, another really pretty neutral color story. We have the, what is this called? The Midas, well, we have shades that fell out. What? Three shades just absolutely fell out of this palette. Well, that's never happened with this before. Anyway, well, glad I'm getting rid of that. Let's see. I have a few others from Midas, but we'll just talk about these for now. So even though these actually were pretty good color stories, this brand went out of business. I did find out later, way down the road from whenever I found this brand, that it is private label. I'm not going to go too long about private label because I do still have some private label palettes in my collection, but this formula is actually just okay. And the fact that the brand went out of business, I mean, I'm not going to be like wearing this and sharing it with my, you know, my followers because you can't buy it. And the formula really isn't that great after all. So, and shades are just flying out of the pan, apparently. All right, the Ciate London Spiced Palette. Now, this palette is actually pretty good. Reminds me of a Huda Beauty palette in the layout. I do like the color story, but is it amazing? No. Do I have other palettes that I enjoy better? Yes, like the Sydney Grace Raspberry Kiss palette recently landed in my collection. Has some similar shades in there with the much better formula, so I just don't need it. This is actually, speaking of private label, long story short, a long time ago, I thought I might start a beauty brand. This is before I understood the whole makeup world and private label and all that. And I found this company and had them send over shades to me so I could test out. They actually perform really, really well, but turns out that was a private label company. And that's when I started realizing how many makeup brands truly all have the same formula, just different prices. So these were all singles and they do perform really, really well, but I'm not going to use them. I didn't start a makeup brand. I'm not starting a private label makeup brand, so I don't need it. All right, the Cult palette by Sample Beauty. This is a really inexpensive brand, and I was really hoping to find a brand that had an amazing formula at a good price. This formula is just very lackluster. Even though it's cheap, I just would rather use something better. So no sense in keeping that. This is the Docolor Tropical palette. I've actually had this one for about 2 years. And this is like for someone who doesn't have a lot of makeup, that hasn't tried a lot of formulas and wants a lot of colors. Then I think they'd have so much fun with this, or like a teen would have a lot of fun with this, a little girl even, but it's just not up to par quality-wise. Their brushes though, their brushes are really, really good for the price. All right, She Glam, again, we have the Centuries palette. This is a cool toned palette, peachy. You know, this actually isn't terrible either, but some of the shades are like a little bit light. Like this one here doesn't show up very well. You have to really build up the mattes. So even though like this shimmers like looks really, really pretty, I just have so many of those blue to brown, brown to green, multi-duo chromes, and this one doesn't match up to the ones I have in so many other palettes. All right, the Gold Crush palette from Makeup Revolution. This actually, the shimmers in here, excellent. They are stunning, but it got kind of old. Like I opened it up and it just, I don't know, it just looked kind of old and weird. And this actually performed really, really well, but I just think it's past an expiration date. This True Nude palette from Element Beauty, I actually really like this. It's so boring. It's so boring. But for a neutral palette, it worked really, really well. This shimmer in here is really, really pretty. But I have other neutral palettes that are amazing in my collection, like the Glaminatrix Nearly Nude, my Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette. I have one from Mora that I love. So I don't need it. The Bright Lights from Pinky Rose Cosmetics. So this is actually really fun. Really, really bright, but it does have 3 glitters in here. And I'm just, you know, I will do a glitter here and there, but I like a really special glitter formula, and this just isn't that. Plus, I'm not doing, I don't know, this would be really fun for like an 80s look or just like specifically like a neon look, but I'm just not doing that often. So I feel like I have other palettes I could reach for if I'm doing that. 2 more Makeup Revolution palettes. So this is the Tasty Chili palette, and here's what it looks like. I actually think this color story is kind of fun. I think it's kind of on theme, but there were some shimmers in here that performed really, really well. Makeup Revolution's quality is hit or miss for sure. Sometimes their shimmers are actually like pretty surprisingly good, but I never reached for this or this one here that is clearly a knockoff of a Too Faced palette, which you're about to see one in the declutter. This color story is also really pretty, but It just, like, the mattes are just okay. The shimmers are okay. I have no room for okay in my collection. The Ace Beauté Nostalgia palette. Now, I really like this color story. I didn't mind the quality of this, but there's like some mold growing on this shade right here. So I thought it's time to let it go. Yeah, it's a couple of years old, so maybe that's why. Now we have two Juvia's Place palettes, and you might be like, what? Because I do love Juvia's. That's a great formula, but this is a color story thing for me. So this is the Nubian. It's just not an exciting color story. And then we have the Nubian 2. And I don't know. It's just a little too brown. I don't know. I just don't love the color story. The shade appears gorgeous. It's like bronzy color, but I just know I'm not going to reach for it. If I'm not going to reach for it, then I don't need it. All right, we have this little 6 what is the deal with shades falling out of the palettes? What in the world? Oh my goodness, you guys, I have to be careful. Well, okay, this little 6 pan from Ambi Dollish, little bitty brand. I think this is really pretty. I just never really used it. It's just like not a color story that I think about using. So that's why it's going. See if I can not have pans fall out. All right, Black Moxie Cosmetics, the Nostalgia palette. I actually adore this color story. I think it's stunning, but I just am not sure. It's another brand that like kind of keeps coming back, disappearing, coming back, and I just don't know what's going on. And I don't know. I had some like patchy issues as well. So even though I like the color story, I decided to let that one go. All right, here's the Too Faced I was talking about, the Better Than Chocolate palette. I do think this is really pretty color story. Too Faced isn't my favorite formula anymore. I used to really love this brand, but I mean, I just can't justify keeping this when I still have over 200 palettes in my collection of like high quality brands and formulas. So even though it's a pretty color story, I'm gonna let that go. The Nude Rich palette from Huda Beauty. Again, this is a really pretty color story, but I think I have my Raspberry Kiss from Sydney Grace that like is hard to beat the formula. So it's too repetitive in my collection. The Smoky Soiree, I was actually really disappointed in this. I like Dose of Colors formula usually, and I liked these 5 pans, and I've got other ones that I decided to keep in different color stories. I love this color story because I love a smoky eye, but it just was patchy and didn't perform that well. So I was really, really disappointed. I wasn't expecting that from that palette. The One by Lawless is another palette that is not bad. It's just not exciting. I've got other brands that I like better. Now, I do really like this, actually. This is a Kaleidos Cosmetics, and these are all metallic shimmers. They're actually stunning. They really, really are. This is like a clean beauty brand, gluten-free, all that stuff. I never really hear much about the brand. I never think to use this palette, even though it's really, really pretty. I think, okay, I've got like gorgeous multi-chromes, duochromes. I've got metallics now in Nomad Cosmetics' new palette. So it's just like taking up space in my collection, but I do think it's really pretty. We have another Ambi Dollish palette. This is, I'm not sure what this one's called. I actually thought these are so, now when I talk about like glitters that perform well, like this one is stunning, and this silver shimmer is gorgeous in here. I would keep it for like this row alone. Look how beautiful that is. But I'm like, don't keep a whole palette just for one row. So this is not a bad palette. I actually really love these mustardy tones. I just don't ever really reach for it, but someone else could really enjoy that palette. All right, I have 2 Milani palettes. And these are actually so good. So it kind of makes me sad. These were from their like spooky season collection 2 years ago. They performed so well, you guys. They really, really did. But because I can't like recommend them because you can't get them anymore. I just decided, I'm not sure why I have these, but they're really, really good. For like drugstore, they were really good. This is another Black Moxie palette. So again, a stunning color story, like super, super beautiful. I did have one crumble. She sent a replacement and it crumbled again. So there's issues with that, but the mattes are just so patchy. I just can't recommend it really because of the patchy mattes. Almost said patchy matchies. All right, we have another Midas. This is the Smoky Glow palette. This kind of makes me sad because Smoky Glow doesn't really exist anymore much. If you guys didn't know, like she was on YouTube, she had a presence on Instagram, she got her account shut down on Instagram. She kind of had a lot of personal issues happen in her life, and she turned her channel more into like a drama channel where she talked about like drama in makeup, in pop culture, and so she didn't really do makeup anymore, which is really sad. But this was her palette. It's a beautiful color story, but again, I've already said my piece about Midas, and sadly I have another one by them, the Flower Bomb palette. Lots of glitters in here. Like if you're a glitter lover, like you might love this palette. Again, the brand is no longer a brand. Look how pretty. I mean, those glitters really do look stunning, but I just don't reach for them enough. Now this is another brand that went out of business. It was Muse Beauty first, which is whenever I got this, the Rococo palette. Then they changed over to a different name. I cannot think. They did not last long. They were a Texas-based brand. This color story is so beautiful. Like they had so much promise, this brand. But this palette is several years old. I never reached for it. The brand's no longer in business, so that's why I'm getting rid of that. Then we have another brand that's out of business. Oh my gosh, there's several in here. The KKW, so this is a KKW and Mario, as in like Makeup by Mario palette. And then this is the Crystallized palette. Now, these are really beautiful also. Like, I like the color stories on these, but it's a brand that's no longer in business. The palettes are getting older, so I decided to get rid of them. The Riviera palette by Anastasia Beverly Hills. I know this is nostalgic for a lot of people. This was kind of one of those palettes that like people either loved it or they kind of hated it. I really enjoyed it. I just never reach for it. Anastasia Beverly Hills, I think the formula is okay. I don't think it's that great. I just don't. So yeah, don't need that. Blood Moon by Wednesday Cosmetics. I actually really liked this palette. I don't know if the brand's doing much. She hasn't put anything out. This palette is from 2 years ago. I haven't seen anything since. I really loved the silver in here, but I don't know. It's really awesome for spooky season, but I'm like, should I only keep it to use like 1 month? No. So I'm about to talk myself out of that one. I need to move on. Another brand that's out of business is Milan Rowe. This is really sad. This was in collaboration with Doodles by the Bunny. She also now works with Gourmand Girls, which I love. They're doing amazing collaborations. I think this palette is so beautiful. I love the color story, but the brand she recently announced, everyone was kind of wondering, is the brand going away? She wasn't doing anything for a while, and she did announce she's closing. So I don't love the mattes in here. I did like the shimmers, but I don't need to keep it for just the shimmers. Next, we have PYT Beauty. Now, the Upcycle Shadow Party in the Nude. I've used this so many times. I really do like this palette. This is more of like a K-beauty type of look. Like the shimmers are very ethereal and sparkly. The mattes you have to really build up. I don't know. I've had it in my maybe declutter bin for a really long time. Every time I wear it, I do enjoy it. But I'm like, if I keep wondering if I should declutter it, I should declutter it. Then this is the Dia and Noche palette by JCat Beauty. This is a very cheap palette. I want to say it's like $5 to $7. I do love JCat. I love their, they have like singles. I don't know if I have one right in front of me in this store, but they have singles that are beautiful. They have gorgeous highlighters, but I just never, ever, ever used this palette. Another Huda Beauty, this is Emerald Obsessions. Kind of a gorgeous color story. I'm going to talk myself out of it, so I need to put it to the side. But I have other greens in other palettes and formulas that I like better than Huda's. These are two more from Midas that we've already talked about that's no longer. So like these little quads. Actually really pretty color stories like for fall. But I've already said why I'm decluttering anything Midas. Phase Zero, I just recently used this. It just came in my BoxyCharm by Ipsy. I used this and did a video on my TikTok of it to test it out, and the mattes in here are horrendous. They barely show up. They're so chalky and powdery. The shimmers were actually pretty nice, but no. All right, Kiko Milano. This is the Glamour Multi-Finish palette. Here's what this looks like. Cool toned. Aquatic looking palette. The formula in this is just okay. It is not great. Let's see. We have this little quad from Lottie London. It's still in the paper. This came in an Ipsy glam bag. So did this PYT in this little quad. Again, these are actually really like K-Beauty pretty. This one anyway. Lottie London, I don't love their eyeshadow formula. Their eyebrow pencil is my holy grail, but I will never use these ever. We have two from LA Colors, and I was really sad about these because I do have some LA Colors shadows I think perform really, really well. I am keeping some of those like cheaper palettes that aren't amazing, but they do well. So I can do some affordable looks for you guys sometimes and show you, but these just don't perform well, these two. I love the color stories. I think the color stories are gorgeous. They had pretty embossings on them, but they just don't perform. Then we have this Berries and Cream, yes, Dreams by Violet Voss. This recently came in BoxyCharm by Ipsy. Really pretty color story. I saw a lot of people use this and say that this was a better formula from Violet Voss, but I didn't touch it because, again, I have other palettes that I love and other brands that are similar color stories, and so there's no reason for me to keep this, and I can pass it along to someone else. This is sad to me because I love Lethal. This is the Helena palette, but this is one of their probably worst palettes, and I have several singles, but I don't know, the color story is a little bonkers, and I don't think it performs as well as their other shadows. We have a spooky palette. This is Boothang by Makeup Maniacs. This is actually a perfect spooky season color story, and these are shimmers that are gorgeous. I think it's private label. The brand is another one that's kind of gone MIA. I don't know what's going on, so I won't ever use it to share with you guys. This is the Alamada Cosmetics, the Reina del Caribe palette. Color story stunning. It just got old. I can just tell by looking at it, it's just old. So really pretty color story, but I don't know, it just didn't hold up. I do have some palettes that are older than this, but all right, that is it, you guys. I don't know how many that was. You guys already know, but I'm really proud of myself. And you guys let me know if you think I'm crazy for decluttering some of these. If you're proud of me, did it inspire you to declutter yourself? And as always, have fun shopping. Budget shopping. Bye.